Welcome to Year 6's English for Thursday the 7th of January. We're going to continue with our book Stella by Starlight, and our learning intention today is to generate suitable vocabulary. We're going to consider your 5 senses. You're going to generate nouns and appropriate adjectives within noun phrases. You're going to generate precise verbs to describe actions, and consider purposeful adverbs to describe where, how, and when action may occur. We're also going to ask you to look at your words at the end of your writing and then choose some that you're going to go and edit with a thesaurus to improve your vocab choices. Today we're going to create a vocabulary list. So there's a grid that you've all seen before, and we've used that in school many times. We're going to be looking at images, and we're going to be listening to some sounds of Bumblebee, North Carolina, where Stella by Starlight is set. As you go through the slides, I'd like you to think about what vocabulary it brings to mind. And so you're going to need a grid like this in front of you so that you can jot down your appropriate words. Now, the grid is broken up into 4 sections. Figurative language. Think about what we've already studied in school this year and the types of figurative language that we've discussed. So we've looked at similes. So that's when we use words like as and like in order to say something is similar to something else. We worked on creating metaphors last term in particular when we were looking at saying things are actually something else. So, for example, when we were looking at the Black Mamba's men in Gorilla Dawn, we were saying that the Black Mamba was a vicious buffalo. And personification. Well, that's when we say an object, an inanimate object normally, it takes on human actions and becomes like a person. So the branch of a tree waved at me. The tree branch can't physically wave at you, but the movement that it has gives the impression that that's exactly what it's doing. Noun phrases. A group of words that describe a noun. So for example, the word lake is a noun. That's the name of a body of water. But when we add some other words to it, we extend the phrase so it becomes something like the beautiful blue lake. So we're going to be looking at you to generate not just simple nouns, but noun phrases that can describe the things that we're seeing and hearing. Verbs. They're doing or action words, so something could be jumping or crawling, for example. And adverbials. So they're normally a single word or a group of words which help to add description to an action. So it can tell you how something happened. That's the manner in which it's happened. It can tell you where it's happened. That's the place. When it happened, the time, or how often it happened. That's the frequency. The first thing we'd like you to do is listen to some sounds of Bumblebee, North Carolina. Now, I've tried embedding these videos into this slideshow, but it won't let me play them and record sound over the top at the same time. So you are going to need to go to YouTube, and for the one on the left, can you please Google swamp sounds at night, frogs, cricket, light rain, forest nature sounds, and have a little listen to the sounds that you can hear around the swamp. And for the second video, can you Google burning fireplace with crackling fire sounds, and you'll be able to just hear some of the sounds that you might hear when fire is burning. If you haven't already paused the video and gone to Google those sounds, could you please do that now before we go further? Because the next thing we're going to do is have a look at some images, and it's important that we got the sounds first before we consider these images. Some of the images that we're going to have a look at next can be quite sensitive in nature. Now, I know that we've discussed some of this on our Zoom call already yesterday, but the themes of the book Stella by Starlight are quite outdated, and some of the words that we use in the text are not okay or suitable to use in 2021. So we need you to think and be very, very sensible and responsible, and you need to be showing us real maturity when we're discussing any of the themes or the words within the book. Now, that also applies to the images that we're going to be seeing in a second, because some of them will show images of the Ku Klux Klan and some of their rituals, and some of them will show images of Carolina in days gone past. It's not how it looks now necessarily, but some of them are quite old images. Look at this image that you can see of a tree fallen by a pathway, and think about some of those words that you're going to add to your vocab grids that would describe things that you can see in front of you here. You might want to pick up on the twists and the turns within the bark of the tree. You might want to think about how green the whole image looks. If you need to pause the video as we go along, please do so. The next image is of a lake in Carolina. Now you can see this is obviously at either sunrise or sunset, because you've got a beautiful orangey sky there, and that's reflected into the lake. So again, you might want to think about what you can see and choose some words that would describe that image. Again, if you need to pause the video at any time, please do so. Here's another look at the lake, and this is a little bit later on in the daytime. So past sunset now, and we're falling into night time. Now I can see the moon up there in the distance, but again, have a look at what else you can see. Are any of the images in front of you reflected also into the lake beneath? And here's a shot up at the night sky. And again, just take a moment to jot down any words that you can think of which could describe the darkness, the blackness, or the stars in front of you. This next image is an old photograph of two children standing on the front steps of their home. Again, it was taken in the southern United States around about 1950 something. So it's quite an old image now, but the book is set in the 30s, 1930s. So it's a little bit later than the setting in the book, but it's fairly typical of the time. And have a look at the houses and the way they're constructed and how the children themselves may well be dressed. Here's an outhouse, an image of an outhouse, again around about the 1930s, 1940s. And again, what words would you write down to describe the condition and the things you can see of that building? Here's a fairly typical house. Again, this is an image taken from North Carolina. So you can see here a typical home at the time of the book setting. Notice how the houses are constructed. That would be wooden boarding that they've got on the front there, and you can see they've got shutters as well on the window. What else can you notice? Now here's an image of the Ku Klux Klan. Now here are some, they call themselves Klansmen, riding on horseback, And you can see one of the figures on the right hand side's got something in his hand, which is a light. It's fairly typical symbol of the Ku Klux Klan to burn a cross. But rather than focusing on that in this image, have a look at the way the Klansmen themselves are dressed. The white overalls that they're wearing, I think they're described in the book, if I remember, Tony describes them as bed sheets, pointed bed sheets, and you can see why he's got that description in the book. Think about the time of night as well that they're meeting. This isn't something that's happening in broad daylight. There must be a reason why they would clan together and gather together in the evening time or night time. Now this slide here shows a cross burning, and again it's a typical clan ceremony or ritual, and it's not uncommon for them to be burning crucifixes or Christian crosses and setting them alight and then standing in a circle around those flaming crosses. Now, as you're adding to your vocab grids, just think about those things that you can see there. Maybe how is the fire behaving? Could you use any figurative language to describe that? Think about the way the Klansmen in front of you in their outfits are standing. What are they doing with their arms, for example? And they would definitely be reaching out to each other and trying to form a circle around the entire cross burning ceremony. There are also some figures standing within the circle. Now, how would you describe those figures? Are they standing in the same way? What do you think may well be happening there? And here's an image from, this one's actually taken from a movie, which is why it's slightly blurred, but it's a recreation of another type of clan gathering where the people within that shot aren't dressed fully in those white robes that you've seen in the previous pictures, but they are hooded, though those hoods are more of a crude kind of hood. They're not so pointy and ceremonial as the other ones. Those ones there are just designed in order to cover their faces. Now think about why they would want to cover their faces. What are they doing that's wrong? Why are they carrying flaming torches? What is their intention behind looking like that? And why would they want to show such aggression towards a certain group of people? So again, for the last few slides, you might want to pause, rewind, and just take a few more minutes just to have a look at individual sides than the time I've given you in this video. Feel free to do that at any moment. Now you've got your vocab grids, think about some of the words that you have written down there in your figurative language, noun, phrase, verb and adverbial boxes. There might be some words that first come to mind that you think you might be able to improve upon and find more challenging vocabulary that you might want to include in a piece of writing. So please use an online thesaurus to see if there's a way that you can improve the words that you have chosen. And if you do change any of your words, please make sure that you neatly replace them within your vocab grid under the relevant sections. After you've done that, your last part or your last task for today is a little bit of a reflection. I'd like you to think about explaining the importance of selecting language that is suitable for the context you're writing in. Now think about the setting of this book. Think about the kind of things that we are dealing with within Stella by Starlight, the themes and some of the context that we've already looked at in previous sessions. Can you give examples of language choices that would not be suitable for this description? And can you explain why?